In this video article, we're going to look at how writers can add 150,000 first draft words to their writing tallies in the next 12 months and do that without scheduling any extra writing sessions. Now, that's a provocative headline, I know, a provocative title, but I will, if you bear with me, I will prove how you can do that. Before we jump in and start looking at that, if you want to get an email with a timestamped overview every time I release a new video, then simply go to my website. You'll find it at deliberate-practice.com. Sign up for my email list. There's also other content at the website, and I'll also be providing some thank you goodies for signing up and some email subscriber only content in the upcoming weeks and months. So do go and do that. Also stay tuned to this video because I've got an unexpected productivity hack for you, something that might double the effectiveness of what we're about to talk about. So let's start off by looking at some writer math. If you wrote an extra 500 words a day and you did that for 6 days a week, you did it for the next 50 weeks of the year, that's equals your 150,000 words of extra first draft content, and you can do that without scheduling any extra writing sessions. And by that I mean by sitting down and going, right, I'm going to write an extra half an hour, 45 minutes every day so I can get an extra 500 words a day, whatever your writing speed is. You can actually do this in 15 minutes each day. Here's how you do it. You leverage 15-minute pockets of dead time. I'll go into dead time in more detail in a moment. And you use dictation with your smartphone in those 15-minute pockets of dead time. And I've written a book about this. Again, it was from the lens of writing non-fiction. I haven't done it with fiction, but the list of fiction writers who have used dictation to write their books encompasses Dostoevsky, John Milton, Paradise Lost, Henry James, Terry Pratchett, L. Stanley Gardner. There's a guy called Kevin J. Anderson who writes science fiction and fantasy. He's my age, and he's approaching 200 books written. And at one point he used to walk in the mountains every day, dictate into a traditional tape recording dictation device, and he used to employ 2 secretaries full-time to transcribe what he dictated. Fortunately, with software and voice-to-text capability, we don't need to do that anymore. We can do it into simple programs that you can get for free or very cheap. And yeah, as I said, I wrote this from a non-fiction perspective, but if you want to do it for fiction, you can do it for fiction too. Now, I've written a book that goes on into this process in more detail. You'll find that book at Amazon. It's called How to Write in Your Dead Time. It's only a few dollars on Kindle. There's a print version as well, which is a little bit pricier, but it's still pretty cheap. 3 or 4 cups of fancy coffee will cover you. All sales help support the YouTube channel, so everything like that is appreciated. But if you don't want to do that, I'll give you enough detail to work the process out for yourself or experiment with it so you can adapt the process for your writing methodology. So very quickly, let's look at what actually is dead time. These are our pockets of time where we're doing something physical, but we're not doing anything that occupies a lot of mental headspace. So for example, walking the dog could be a prime piece of dead time. I've done stuff while walking the dog. Sometimes my dog is a little bit he's a little bit lively, so it can be distracting, but depends on your dog. But you can use walking the dog as an example. If you're walking somewhere, you can use that. If you're waiting to pick up the kids from school or sports club, you've got 10 or 15 minutes. You can use those kind of slots. If you're waiting for meetings or appointments, or if you drive to a meeting and you're 20 minutes early because you've allowed for traffic, you can use 15 minutes of those 20 minutes to leverage as dead time. And in 15 minutes, speaking slowly, you can easily get 500 words of content dictated and recorded. So you don't need massive chunks of time to make a big difference if you are consistent and you let compound interest do its thing. Now, you've already got a great voice to text device 99.9% of you will have. It's your smartphone. You don't need the fancy latest version. I've got an iPhone 13 and I simply use the Notes app. There are other apps that you could use, like Otter.ai, something like that. The difference between the two is that if you use the Notes app, you'll have to dictate your punctuation. If you use Otter.ai, you can just dictate the words and it will insert the punctuation. And when I'm actually doing my dictation, I just use simple bullet style outlines, even simpler than what you can see on the slides that I'm using for this video article, and I dictate the content that I need. When you've finished doing your dictation, or when you get home, you can airdrop your words or you can email them to yourself, and then you load them into your writing software, and then you can use this for actual writing. So it's pretty straightforward. If you're using the Notes app, you'll have to learn the punctuation commands that you need. If you're using Otter, something like that, you'll have to just go through and check it's punctuated your writing in the way that you would like. But it's pretty straightforward, and it can save you lots of time and get you writing. You can also use it for brainstorming, and by brainstorming I mean like the spoken equivalent of free writing, I guess, where you just talk into your phone about, let's say you're brainstorming plot points or story ideas, and you can just literally do the verbal equivalent of free writing. And then when you get home and you've because I keep saying when you get home, I go for walks to do this, but when you get home, if you're doing that and you import it to your writing computer, then if you've done a brainstorming one, you can copy and paste the text into whatever AI software you use, and you can use the AI to summarize and extract key points, and it does a much better job than you would of doing that. So that's something else you can do with dictation. Now, I just want to move on to this productivity hack that I alluded to at the start of the video. So let's say you go for a walk, you dictate for 15 minutes, you've got 500 words. Okay, you come home, you export it to your computer, and then in your computer when you get it, so I always email it to myself, and then I copy and paste it to my writing software. For me is usually Scrivener, but it doesn't matter, whatever you use. Some people still use Word. It doesn't matter. Whatever your writing software of choice is, you get the words in that software and then you edit them immediately. Now, if you're like me and you write with writing music, then use the writing music while you're editing. And the reason for that is when you've edited those words, your writing brain will be warmed up and those words should prompt you to keep writing. So not only do you come back from your little walk with 15 minutes of exercise and a few hundred steps or a couple of thousand steps, and 500 words of content, but you also then, it warms up your brain. And I've found numerous times I've come back, thought, I've done my 500 words for today, I don't need to do any more, edited them, and suddenly 30 minutes later, after I've started editing, I've got another 500-600 words. So this is a great way to, so especially if you have problems starting, then go for a walk and dictate for 10 minutes. And even if you only get 200 words or 250 words, come back, put them into your computer, edit them. That process should warm your brain up, and then the screens, the page you're working on is not blank. You've got words on it, and your brain should start giving you words to continue where you left off from your dictation, and you'll get more words in a more conventional writing session that have been stimulated by the dictation session. So this for me is so being able to write while being able to dictate and get first draft words while you're doing 15 or 20 minutes of walking or whatever it is that you find you do. And I go into other activities you can do dictation with in the book. is really beneficial because you're adding extra words. But if you combine that with this, where you edit the words, because dictated words aren't, certainly for me anyway, aren't as elegant or as clear and concise as the words that I write. Once you've done that editing, then your writing brain being warmed up and ready to go, you basically double what you've just done. So this is the real secret sauce, if you like. And yes, if you write 1,000 words a day, 6 days a week, 50 weeks of the year, that will be 300,000 extra words. So hopefully you'll give this a try. I've said in numerous videos, one of the hardest parts of a writer's job is to find their writing process. And it may be that you try dictation and it doesn't work for you. That's okay. If that's the case, I would still keep nibbling away at it, because the number of fiction writers who've produced books with it is massive, and you never know, you may have issues like sitting in a chair for long periods of time isn't great for us from a health perspective, whereas going for a walk in the fresh air is much better from a health perspective. So you may find there are times in the future, or your wrists might be really sore from typing. I get periodic RSI, especially in the right hand, which is also to do with my bass playing. Then this can alleviate that, and you can maybe switch to this for short periods of time for health reasons when you need to. So give it a try. Have it as an option in your writer's toolbox that you can draw on if you need to, and see how you go. And let me know how you get on. I'm always interested in hearing how people deal with this. So the book that I mentioned, and there'll be a link in the description, includes a deliberate practice-based crash course on learning all the punctuation that you'll need for dictation, or actually I've applied Pareto's principle to it, and 80% of the punctuation you'll need. And you can buy the book, use it for 60 to 90 minutes, and you'll be a punctuation ninja. If your word counts don't meet what you want them to meet, then try using dictation as a way of boosting them. The beauty of it is you can get bigger word counts with relatively small periods of time. If you've got any questions or queries, paul@deliberate-practice.com is my email address. Don't hesitate to contact me. And if you are an aspiring or frustrated fiction writer, I've put together a resource called the Writing Vault. You see the URL in front of you. There'll be a link in the description for that as well. So check that out. If you've got questions about it, just let me know. There's some interesting things going in the next 6 weeks or so, and I'll talk about those at various points. But thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to email me, as I've said, and I'll catch you in the next video.